couple of immediate follow-up questions that come to mind. One is, can that lesson be applied to today, or was that a different era? So, for example, perhaps that was a time in which, because everybody worked more slowly, she wasn't worried about quote unquote getting scooped, right? She wasn't worried about some other scientist making this discovery and snatching that Nobel out from underneath her.
Well, it's a very good question. I mean, scientists were worried about being scooped even well before then. I mean, what is it that pushes Charles Darwin to finally finish Origin of the Species is someone else is hot on his trail. What is it that pushes Isaac Newton 200 years earlier to finally get the Principia put together? Leibniz has also invented calculus and is beginning to publish. So scientists worried about that. But there's a bigger point here, which is why study what I call traditional knowledge workers. So people like Marie Curie who made a living with their brain, but in a time or circumstance where they didn't have bosses and offices and email. And the key thing here is that our goal is not to mimic their lives, right? So I'm not going to work exactly like Marie Curie. I'm not going to work like Jane Austen, who I also profiled. I'm not going to work exactly like Isaac Newton or Charles Darwin. They were in different circumstances, different jobs, different times. But what we can do is use them as a natural experiment. So here are people who, like us, made a living with their brain, unlike us, had a lot of flexibility in how they did it. So given all that flexibility, what do they gravitate towards? And we can use them as almost like a lodestone to try to point us towards what really works when you want to try to produce valuable things with your brain. Predictable disruption is fine. Unpredictable disruption just destabilizes everything. It's I was going to work on this thing today, but now I'm in a back and forth with the sound engineer contractor. And we got to resolve this today because, the conference is coming up, but it's going to take 10 or 15 back and forth messages to figure this out. And if we're going to get through 10 and 15 back and forth messages in one day, I'm going to have to see each of their messages really soon after it gets here so I can send that back again. So now I'm checking my inbox once every 5 minutes because I have to keep up with this conversation with the contractor. But now that I'm in my inbox every 5 minutes, I'm seeing all these other things going on. It's a destroyed day. Now, here's the typical trade-off. Synchrony allows for easy, like low message complexity solutions to things. So if we have really synchronized, and typically in these abstractions, it's like synchronized rounds. But if we're basically going in real time, right? We can solve things with really easy interactions. But when you build a system, there's a huge cost to try to build a system that can synchronize us so we can do it. Asynchrony. So, I'm going to send a message to you. It'll get to you eventually. I don't know how long it's going to take, or even if you're there or not, or maybe you've left. Very easy to build a system where computers can talk asynchronously, but now the protocols become much more complicated because we have to deal with the fact that we're not just here in real time, and the number of messages involved and everything greatly increases. So there's this trade-off. It's hard to build a synchronous system, but then everything's easy once you have it. Are they going to like this song? It's like when I'm writing a magazine, like a New Yorker article. The main thing I'm thinking about is my editor going to think this is good? You're thinking, because he's really good. He's a really good editor. And so if he thinks it's good, this is good. And you get kind of myopic around it, but then you get better. There's so many things I could be doing. More is better than less. And I'm really selling myself and my opportunities short unless I'm doing as many things as possible. And then, of course, the overload just prevents you from doing anything well. The other instantiation of the pseudo productivity curse is if I work for someone else. And it's less about I'm trying to become a star, and it's more about I'm trying to signal to my employer that I'm productive. So you end up not testing what to do, what you really want to do better. You end up learning how to do what those platforms want you to do better. So you put Lin-Manuel Miranda on YouTube. Instead of going to Wesleyan in the late 90s, let's say he's going to Wesleyan in the 2010s. If he's thinking great, I'm working on a new style and I want to succeed on YouTube first, you're not going to get In the Heights. You're not going to get Hamilton. You're going to get, I don't know, Lin-Manuel Miranda talking about how to get shredded, right? It's going to push them into a weird place because those algorithms have their own mechanism. So social media, it's just something to treat with caution. Like you mentioned, if you have a small business, it's great for marketing, right? Why are these companies so profitable? not because lots of people use them, but because lots of people use them and can be targeted very specifically. So it's like a miracle if you're advertising. Like I can advertise and try to get my ad in front of exactly the people I want to see it. So it's like very good for marketing. There's definitely use cases where it helps, where you're careful about it, where I'm not on social media all the time, but I'm still getting some benefit. I think about like Ryan Holiday has his team tweet out like a Stoic quote every day. And those get the people and it does grab new eyeballs for him. But Ryan Holiday doesn't get within 20 feet of a Twitter account, right? He doesn't want to see that, right? And he doesn't pretend like he is either. But like, okay, that's interesting use. Or like how you and I use YouTube, which is like, we'll put our podcast episodes on there. But it's not like you or I are using the numbers from YouTube to like really influence what we do on our podcast. Because again, both our podcasts would end up being about either like weightlifting or Taylor Swift, right? Like if we were just using like what's getting the numbers up, it would change it. So there's plenty of, I think, careful good uses for it, but I don't see it as fundamental, especially like doing things that are too good to be ignored.
Learn how to identify quality. If caring about high quality is critical to achieving more without burning out, then the next question becomes, all right, how do we know what high quality is? How do we know it when we see it? Cal Newport explains what we need to prioritize when we are obsessing about quality.
So we really need to spend more time up front learning what good is. That's like more important at first than actually trying to get good. Because if you don't know where you're aiming your ship of skill, it's just going to go randomly through the waters of activity, if you know what I mean. So we actually have to, like, one of the most important things you can do is not how do I get better? It's like, what makes those really good people good? And when you trust your taste, then you're getting really good feedback. Okay, this is pretty bad, but I know why it's bad. I can't do this, this, and this. All right, could I do that with enough practice? Yes. Could I do this? You know what? No, I'm never going to be able to do this. Let's change our plan. So I think we really undervalue taste when we talk to people about getting good at things or pursuing quality.
And so that is the second key takeaway. Finally, key takeaway number 3. In order to produce great things in your field, you need to be inspired. So find other people in your field who have done amazing things. And again, this could apply at your day job, at your side hustle, at your small business, at a community group or a nonprofit or a volunteer activity. This can apply in any domain, right? Find someone who's done the thing that you want to do, someone you admire, someone you look up to, and find out how they became successful. Find out how you can plot that path.
What you need to do is take someone who is in your same field, who's doing very well. And you say, I want to take you out to coffee. I want to hear your whole story. And you walk them through. All right, so here was your first job. What was your next promotion? Well, what mattered at that promotion? Okay, then what happened next? And you begin to figure out what mattered for this person. So you can do this even when it's not a public figure, even when there's not podcasts to listen to or magazine profiles to read. And the key thing, if you're just talking to someone, is not just finding out the steps they took, but for every step, the key question is, what did you do in that step that other people trying to make that same step but failed were not doing? So let's get that differential analysis